Hey everyone, it's Chad N/0YK. We're out on the mobile today doing a little 146.52 as we make our way over near Salina, Kansas. And this was kind of a random trip, but it all worked out. So today we are going over to Pete N0 Oscar Yankee. We're going over to what's called the Hill. And basically, long story short, we'll get into this a little bit more as we meet up with Pete here in about 10 minutes. But Pete has a really awesome station just west of Salina. There's a radio telescope. There's numerous commercial towers. Go out to his QRZ page and you're going to see all this stuff. He has a lot of information on his QRZ page of everything he's done. Anything from moon bounce, weak signal VHF, UHF, and I think he's even done some lightning studies. And you'll see that that tower with the round ball on the QRZ page. But anyway, so we're going out there. We're going to be doing a quick tour of Pete's station on the hill. I have been there one other time, and that was roughly 25 years ago. And I wanted to just tell a quick story before we get to Pete's house. Basically, I was going to school or college at Salina, and the campus I was at was Kansas State University, and they had a ham radio club. That club back in the day was K0KSU, and that's when I first got my license, and it was a really interesting and intriguing time of my life getting introduced to ham radio at the Kansas State University College in Salina. Long story short, previous to me going to college at K-State, Pete had some relationships with the professors and specifically the ham radio club. And kind of where I'm going with this is the ham radio club had a couple of towers, and they are really wood poles, but they had a couple of towers with a number of antennas on it. And one tower in particular was a microwave dish, and it was looking back to the west. And I was told at the time that there was a ham out west of Salina that was real active with the club, at one point, and they were doing some type of microwave experiments. And so one day I literally got in my vehicle and I drove west until I found Pete's place on the hill. So again, that was like 25 years ago. So this is pretty exciting. I haven't been out here for 25 years. I did talk to Pete yesterday and today. He was pretty excited about it's coming out. Obviously, we're going to put this on the YouTube channel, and I really don't know what to expect. I know Pete does gatherings on New Year's Day, and I haven't made one over the years. But anyway, long story short, the GPS shows us about 5 miles away. It is 92 degrees, super muggy out. I'm not sure exactly what content we're going to capture, but we're going to capture. Okay, be looking right as we pop over this hill. You're going to see Pete's station there on the left-hand side of the road at a distance. And just being out here west of Salina and the rolling hills and all this pasture and the blue sky, that station really pops out. This is a fairly wide-angled shot with the camera I'm using. But from the vehicle, that stands out just a bit more than you're seeing here on the screen. It really stands out with the other terrain in this area of the countryside. As we make our way over this last hill, you can really see it, the scale of this ham radio station and some of the experiments Pete does. Lots of towers. These are mostly commercial towers, at least the red and white ones. I'll talk more about these in the video, but as we get closer to making the final drive up to Pete's station, again, this station, just the magnitude of this station really stands out. Okay, we're on the final stretch up to what, again, Pete calls the hill, and you'll see why once we get up here. As we go up to the ham shack and really the hill, the side of all the antennas and towers, one thing I wanted to point out is right in front of this car there was a 100-foot Rowan 25 tower that toppled in the last week or so because of some high winds. So one of the towers is missing from the original configuration here. So for at least this video, Pete opted to stay out of the video and wanted to place the focus on the station and the equipment. we did chat for the better part of an hour, hour and a half, and he showed me a lot of cool stuff that I didn't capture all of it for purposes of this video. But if there's enough interest, maybe thinking a second trip back and possibly breaking out the drone and doing some closer up shots. Again, if there's enough interest and the subscriber community wants to see this type of stuff. But talking with Pete, I wanted to go over some fun facts before we actually start showing some of the footage of the ham shack and some closer shots of each of the towers. And I'll try to provide as best of a description of those as I can while we have this still video in the background of the video. So Pete started using the hill, as he calls it, back in the 70s. And in 1980 is when he became interested in VHF, UHF contest using his old call sign WB0DRL. About that same time in the late 80s, Pete added the 28-foot dish. And that 28-foot dish uses a very unique mount. It's a 5-inch Navy gun mount for tracking and positioning, all controlled with a computer. One of the interesting facts that Pete was talking about that I didn't really know prior to going up to the hill was back in April, NASA selected him to do some tracking and receiving for the Artemis 2 spacecraft signals. And basically, believe if you do a little bit of research, I believe there was roughly 34, amateur stations. And I don't know, again, don't read in too much to the amateur term, but there was 34 stations with radio telescopes that were selected by NASA to do some of this, basically receiving the Artemis 2 spacecraft signal. And so Pete was one of those stations selected, and he ended up supplying NASA with terabytes of information that he received as the aircraft or the spacecraft made its way around the moon. I think most of us probably followed that. It was a very exciting time, I think, for everybody. But he was one of the stations, and I was asking him as he was telling me this, because he was very very matter of the fact, very calm and just, another day at the office type, expression when he was explaining this to me. But I said, well, Pete, I said, how loud was the signal? I mean, was that signal very loud? And basically, a lot of testing went into getting his 28-foot dish ready to go prior to April. But yeah, he said the signal was loud. I think at times it was like 17 dB above the noise. And I guess there was another spacecraft orbiting the moon at the time that they were able to use for testing, getting his 28-foot dish ready to go. So I thought that was kind of an interesting data point that I wasn't expecting as I made my way up to the hill and spent some time with Pete. The other thing that I thought was interesting is I have worked Pete on a number of occasions on 1296 with his 28-foot dish. And, from Scott City, Grid Square Delta Mary 98 over to Pete's place is probably 150 miles or a little bit more. And honestly, we've never not been able to work on 1296. And I attribute all of that to the 28-foot dish. It just, it gives us a lot of advantage when we're working on 1296. But I thought it was kind of interesting that Pete had spent quite a bit of time prepping this dish with a feed horn and some of the engineering aspects that go into tracking the Artemis 2 spacecraft as it made its mission around the moon. Next up, we're going to focus on really the ham shack portion of the building that all these cables come into. There's a lot of things you can see in here. There's basically an ICOM 905 set up on the far left-hand side as I'm panning on this aluminum rack that Pete does some 10. Pete's really interested in 10 gigs, by the way. So I think that's one of his primary passions is 10 gigs. But he had a 905 he was experimenting with I believe, Greg WQ0P. A lot of different things going on in here. HF amplifiers. He had some HF chatter going in the background. Obviously, a lot of microwave stuff. And then, on the right hand side of the shack, he has basically a test bench set up for some of the work he does. And I thought it was interesting. He listens a lot more than he talks, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. You'll be in your ham shack and you'll be working on projects and maybe have the radio on in the background. I think that's a lot of what goes on up here for the most part. Again, he's very passionate about 10 gigs and some of the other higher, microwave bands. But basically, he does focus on 10 gigs. He uses a 6-foot dish. He does 10 gig rain scatter. Terrestrial operations using a 4-foot dish on 10 gigs. The longest contact he had was up into Canada using some tropo at the time on CW and sideband. He has a number of projects, and we're going to see some of that as we go outside, but he has a number of projects he's working on. He wants to do some automated monitoring of the sun's radio energy output on both 2300 megahertz and 10 gigs using the 28-foot dish and possibly his 6-foot dish. And he does operate on HF quite a bit. He's interested in propagation mechanisms controlled by the sun. And one of the projects that didn't make the video, but it was in one of his other shops, was a 20 meter mono beam that he is putting up. I think it was 4 elements, something like that. But he's in the process of making a 20 meter mono band Yagi that he's going to hopefully have put up, in the next couple of months. Okay, we have a few more videos, and the last part of this video is really going to focus on the outside aspect of the station. So as we pan around here, you can see we have a 6-meter beam on the left-hand side. That next tower that's the aviation red and white, or I think they call that orange and white, has the lightning experiment on it. And basically at the top of that tower is some type of a lightning sensor that Pete has had up for a number of years. And long story short, he's never taken a lightning strike up there on the hill, so he hasn't really been able to fulfill that experiment. And he's kind of, I think when I was talking to him, he's just kind of scratching his head as to why he's never had a lightning strike on that tower, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think. But being up on a hill, he's just never had a lightning strike up there. So I suppose that would be considered a good problem to have. As we pan around, there's a number of towers going on here. You got a log periodic in the background. That dish looking up to space is more of art than anything else. That white dish in the background, as we spin around, is one of the 10 gig dishes. And just a number of things going on up here. Guide wires going all over the place, coaxial cables, spanning all over. Of course, we got the wind turbine, and then the 28-foot dish looking up there in the background. Before we left, I took one more pass with my camera, doing a close-up on the 28-foot dish and really just trying to take in all of the different projects and experiments Pete has going on up here on the hill. You can see that the 20-foot dish is pretty massive. As you get up to it, I tell you what, very intimidating. Just the size of that structure, how much it probably weighs, and did I mention it's controlled? The azimuth and elevations controlled by a computer, so pretty impressive. Like I said, a number of dipoles as we walked around, and the log periodic there on the top right hand side. You can see the better shot of the 10 gigs dish. I'm walking up the 10 gigahertz dish. It's pointed to the east, back towards Salina. But that's one of his main dishes he uses for 10 gigahertz. And you can kind of see the feed horn and some of the other aspects of that setup. And last, I wanted to grab another shot of the commercial tower with the lightning experiment going on. Just a little closer shot of the tower itself. You can see more about the actual technical specs on Pete's QRZ site, but you got some type of computer at the bottom, and then the ball at the top. Again, he's never taken a lightning strike on that tower. As much as he's wanted to have a lightning strike, he's never had one up there. As we parted ways with Pete and thanked him for allowing us to come up and see the station and just do a quick eyeball QSO, as they say, Pete offered up kind of a quote that I think resonates with him. And basically, he said something along the lines of, the ham radio hobby has offered up so many opportunities to try so many different modes and have so many learning experiences, building things, interacting with interesting people. And the Hill, again, the name of this station, has been the ideal location to make all that happen. So that, I thought that was pretty cool for a gentleman that's been in the hobby for a number of years, and is very well known for some of his wild experiments and some of the interesting things he does and has done with the hobby. It was just overall a great experience, and I loved just seeing his station. So with that, I wanted to say, if the viewers want to see more content like this, please let me know. If we need to make a second trip back up to Pete's QTH and check out his station, maybe break out the drone, and maybe we can convince Pete into providing some more detailed information about some of the station components and stuff like that, please drop me a comment. That's the only way I have to gauge the interest from the audience in this type of content. This is really the first time we've done a road trip like this and put it out on the channel. And I'm really interested in doing more. I have another one I'm eyeing, kind of contingent on how this video does. It's over in Haswell, Colorado, which is about 2 hours from where I live in Scott City. And a lot of people have probably heard about this, but there is what's called the Deep Space Exploration Society that has a 60-foot or 18-meter radio telescope out south of Haswell, Colorado. I would like to go out there and, I know there's a number of YouTube videos probably already out there on the topic, but I'd kind of like to go out there and do some exploring, meet with some of the guys out there, possibly if we can time it around a 1296 EME contest, maybe hear some echoes off the moon, that type of thing. So if there'd be interest in the viewers seeing this type of content on the channel, please let me know. Again, that helps me gauge the interest. And if you're all interested, I'm interested and I want to do it. So please let me know. There's also a couple of hams out in Colorado that I would like to go visit and probably, do some more documentation like we did with Pete of their stations. There's some big stations out in Colorado, in the Denver area and places like that. And I'd like to make some road trips and go out there and document some of that just to provide some variety to the channel and mix it up a bit. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Please drop a comment if you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It really helps the channel and really helps kind of fuel, my interest and ability going out and doing this type of stuff. It really helps to drive that. And we'll be back with some other content not related to this in the coming weeks. But for now, I wanted to get this out in front of the viewers. And let me know what you think. If you liked it, please smash that like button and drop a comment. We'll say 73.